Hi, I am Addy from Recap-Kun Recap. This is my recap for the anime. A returner's magic should be special. If you like my recaps, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. The story begins in a world of total destruction, with the corpses of fallen comrades scattered everywhere. Suddenly, the ground starts to shake violently as a powerful dragon named Neapolitan approaches, destroying everything in its path. The creature pauses for a moment and begins inspecting the surroundings as it is surrounded by a group of warriors. Being proud and arrogant, the creature starts to speak, reminding humans that it is invincible and can't be defeated. Among the warriors is a guy named Desire, who explains that creatures like this came from the shadow worlds, which are the worst calamities humans have ever faced. Slowly, the world became shrouded in a black fog, leaving nothing surviving in the lands it taints, and nobody knows what goes on inside it. The only way to save the world is by conquering the shadow worlds before the fog claims everything. Desire then takes an oath to slay Neapolitan to end the suffering. The dragon begins to charge up and blasts a huge amount of energy towards the humans. One of the warriors named Raffaello, wielding a shield, steps into the middle and prepares to block it. However, Desire easily counters an incoming energy blast with his magic. This enrages the dragon, and he immediately begins to charge up a stronger spell for another attack. But Desire breaks it before it can be completed. He tells his allies that he has sealed the dragon's draconian spells with a circle, signaling them for an attack. The remaining warriors charge up for an attack, making Neapolitan angry as measly humans stand in his way, and he begins attacking them with his tail. However, Raffaello steps in the way and blocks his tail with the shield, proving that he is the Knight of the Light. Meanwhile, Donovan and Aziz keep attacking the dragon, making him go nuts. When Neapolitan tries to attack them, Zod aids them from a distance with a powerful energy beam. He then gathers all of his magic before transferring it to Aziz, giving her enough MP to finally defeat Neapolitan. The warriors proudly watch as the dragon collapses and the sun emerges from behind the clouds. Even though they have defeated the dragon, they are still stuck in this world. Donovan wonders if they targeted the wrong enemy, but Zod is certain that slaying the dragon was the only condition to escape this hell. They decided to wait for a while, and in the meantime, they remembered how it had been a long and hard journey. Among the 150 million people who had fought the dragon Neapolitan, only 6 of them had survived. Desire recalled all his comrades who had fought the dragon. The battle had taken a toll on the world, with almost 99% of the mages perishing. Priscilla interrupts them, trying to change the subject and talk about something uplifting. The other warriors praised Desire for his contribution, and Zod pointed out how it had been nearly impossible for any of them to seal the dragon's draconian spell, and Desire managed to exceed his expectations. Zod questioned Desire about why, despite having so much strength, he was still unknown. It turned out that Desire was not a noble mage like the rest, he was a commoner. Zod found it unfortunate, as if Desire had been at the magic tower, he could have provided any necessary support. Raffaello then asked about their plans once they returned to their world, and as they were speaking, the dragon opened its eyes. They saw a huge amount of energy starting to release from the dragon's body, and the warriors thought it was still alive. However, they soon learned that it was the dragon's heart, which not only pumped blood but also stored and circulated a vast amount of mana. When the dragon dies, his heart stops pumping blood, but the mana has nowhere to go, so it will explode. The surroundings begin to collapse as our hero steps forward. He tries to form a magical barrier, which gets blown away by the sheer amount of MP. Desire couldn't believe his eyes, as this is how his life will end. Raffaello gets upset that Zod hadn't realized this before the fight. But since it's the first time in history that someone has managed to defeat a dragon, no one could predict the outcome. Zod then forms a barrier around them to protect themselves from the explosion. However, a huge amount of mana is released, and everyone prepares for their impending doom. Desire watches his hands as he remembers his comrades and friends, and gets hit by the mana. He then opens his eyes and finds himself in an empty hall. He is nicely dressed as if he's in a school or an office and begins to question his whereabouts. He hears the sound of applause and goes in that direction. He is dumbfounded when he sees Professor Bridget addressing new students. She informs them about a test, and among them, only 600 will be accepted to the academy. This leaves the students surprised, and it gets even worse when they learn that they have to clear the shadow world as a test. Professor Bridget explains the students that the shadow world is artificially created for the purpose of the test, and they will be supported by their seniors in the process. Desire couldn't understand what was happening or why he is there in the first place. He becomes even more astonished when Professor Bridget says it's the year 3613. Desire realizes that somehow he has returned to the past, 3 years before the war with Napolitan started. He feels miserable and begins to think that the war and everything they went through was pointless. He vividly remembers the view of the academy and accepts his current state. A female student named Ladoria interrupts him and questions why he didn't show up at the meeting spot. She is a second-year student and Desire's mentor for the upcoming entrance exam. Desire recalls that she is a genius mage who wields fire magic and ranked first in the academy. She tells Desire not to be nervous about the upcoming test, as the shadow world is created artificially to assess the student's capabilities in combat. Ladoria is surprised to learn that Desire is a commoner, and she looks a little disappointed, thinking that even if Desire manages to pass, he will still be in the beta class. The academy has discriminatory policies, placing nobles in the alpha class and commoners in the beta class. Even if a commoner is talented, he or she won't get a chance to receive a proper education. After some time, both of them visit the facility, and Ladoria is shocked to realize that the grand facility didn't surprise Desire. He tells her that he has seen a similar building before, but Ladoria is not buying this because there is no grand facility like this elsewhere. Anyways, they are getting late for the test, and she doesn't have time to ask further questions. While on the way to the testing room, they stumble upon another student named Elheim. Desire remembers him as a mage who wields water magic and has a grudge against Ladoria. He confirms it, and she tells him that she really hates Elheim. The two of them start spit roasting each other before Elheim notices Desire standing there. He asks for his name and then checks his information. Upon learning that Desire is a commoner, he makes fun of him, telling him that there won't be any competition. Before leaving, he tries to demotivate Desire by advising him not to take the test as he will end up in the beta class. This leaves Ladoria annoyed, and at the same time, the announcement is made that the entrance exam will commence shortly. Elheim's odd behavior has enraged Ladoria, and she tells Desire that he must pass the test, and they depart for the testing site. Desire finally accepted that he is back in the past, and upon reaching the test site, he started looking around, trying to find someone. However, a girl's voice calls him, who turns out to be Desire's girlfriend, Romantica, telling him to stop looking around like a pervert. Desire doesn't know why he is back in the past, but now he is determined to rewrite the history of the world. Desire almost tells Romantica that he is glad to see her safe. She is shocked to hear him calling her by name and asks if they had met before. To get away from the situation, Desire points towards the screen showing student information. Romantica realizes that they are in the same testing group and wishes him the best of luck. Desire remembers how devastated he was after losing Romantica, and promises to never let her go through such an ordeal again. Afterward, Ladoria informs Desire about his test. He will be racing in the Arensti Plains at the beginner level of the Shadow World. She assures him that the shadow worlds the Academy has created are actually safe and are there for the purpose of the tests. They contain a safety feature so if students receive critical damage, they can be evacuated immediately. When Desire asks about the damage, they get interrupted by Elheim, who explains that during the test, participants are allowed to use magic and attack other students, so it will be nearly impossible for a person like Desire to pass, and he is sure Desire won't last a second against his mentee who turns out to be a magic knight named Azist. But this doesn't shock Desire, as he had fought alongside Azist in the future. He knows she is a magic knight of ice and a high circle mage, capable of wielding vision magic that is impossible to reverse. Her sword skills are far better than a pure knight, and she was his most trusted ally in the future war with Napolitan. After checking her info, Ladoria can't deny Azist's strength and capabilities. Elheim leaves with Azist after insulting Ladoria, and Desire for being a commoner. Ladoria is as angry as ever, but Desire is happy to see Azist again. Ladoria admitted that Desire's odds aren't that great against a magic knight like Azist, but she tells him not to give up. He thanks her for believing in him, and then joins the group for the test. Even though the test is about to begin, he is still looking for Romantica. The students are then transported to the Arensti Plains with the goal of passing to the other side, and only the top 3 among them will be selected. When they get to the other side, they are informed that they are allowed to use magic and interfere, but if anyone received fatal damage, the person will be disqualified. They line up behind the starting line, and Desire looks at Azist, wondering if she has come back to this world with her past memories like him. Azist then calls Desire by his name only because she saw his name in the roster. She thinks Desire has no future due to his below-average physical abilities, which Desire doesn't deny. However, he is now sure that Azist has no past memories, and she mentions she has no intention of attacking a weakling like him. The countdown begins and the race starts. Aziz gets ahead of everyone, and the other participants follow her. Only Desire and Romantica are left behind, and while trying to catch up with the others, Romantica almost pancaked a little creature. She apologizes and finds the creature very fluffy. Desire asks if she still likes that sort of stuff. This leaves Romantica pissed off, as she barely knew the guy. She asks if he is hitting on her instead of focusing on the race, which Desire doesn't deny. Instead, he mentions that at this rate, both of them will be disqualified. This leaves Romantica even more angry, and she feels annoyed by his facial expression. While running, Desire spots a flash of light and pushes her away. A guy named Singh had aimed at Romantica and is now pissed off due to Desire's interference. He decides to take Desire out first and shoots a fire rod spell towards him. However, Romantica uses a wind strike spell, which not only eliminated the incoming fire attack, but also took out Singh, disqualifying him from the Shadow World after receiving fatal damage. Aziz and the others also received the message of Singh's disqualification, and now only 5 of the participants remain. Romantica thanks Desire for taking care of her, but since she has taken out the guy, they are now even. Desire reminds her that they have to catch up with the others, but Romantica isn't bothered by the other participants' lead. She then shows him her true abilities and uses a powerful spell called Arrow Sweep. Back in the academy, the professors are watching everything. They are impressed by the candidates of the following year, especially Aziz, as she is the Magic Knight. However, one professor notices a commoner, Desire, among the Group D, but the others feel pity for him for ending up in the same group with a Magic Knight. As Aziz and the others are running, the 2 participants behind her are impressed by her speed, and have no intention of challenging her, and just want to finish the race. Suddenly, a gust of wind surrounds them, making one of them get blown away. The other remaining participant takes out his sword and sticks it in the ground. He is determined to finish the race and is impressed to see Aziz cutting through the wind spell as if it's nothing for her. However, a huge tree ends up falling onto him, disqualifying him from the exam. After defeating the 2 participants, Romantica focuses on Desire, choosing him as her next opponent. She forms a magical spell and tells him to drop out before he gets seriously hurt. She didn't believe and called him stupid when Desire actually refused to surrender. She immediately casts her magic and uses multiple wind spells to blast at Desire. As she's walking away, she hears Desire's voice, impressed by her casting multiple spells simultaneously. However, he points out that her choice of speed over control sometimes makes her miss the target. This further frustrates Romantica, and she casts a spell called Venom Wind. Desire simply changes the air current around him, causing her spell to miss the target again. Romantica couldn't believe seeing a commoner like Desire using an inversing spell. She thinks only a mage with a much higher circle can inverse others' spells. She tries once again, and Desire simply shatters her spell before it can even touch him. Romantica begins to realize that Desire's skills are much higher than hers, but still refuses to give up. She casts as many spells as she can, and Desire manages to inverse all of them. He tells Romantica that inversion isn't the only spell he can do, and casts a grease spell on himself. It's a basic spell that erases friction, and then he finally uses a fire spell to blast towards Aziz faster than Usain Bolt. The force is enough to throw Romantica on the ground, leaving her feeling amazed by Desire's techniques. Meanwhile, Aziz is about to finish the race but senses that Desire is coming towards her at a blazing speed, and will catch up to her soon. She doesn't know how he defeated Romantica and decides to stop and face him. She begins to cast multiple arrows of prey spells and gets ready to attack. Desire starts analyzing and takes control of her spell, which Aziz also notices. She is surprised but launches an attack before Desire could take control of it all. However, Desire still manages to change the trajectory of her attack, and as the dust settles down, she sees Desire in a rough condition but still standing. She then combines her remaining spells and launches one giant attack, which also doesn't manage to hit Desire. He gets out of the dust faster than the flash, and Aziz is about to take out her sword, expecting a counter-attack from him. It turns out she is so hung up on beating him that she forgot about the race, giving Desire an opening to blow past her and finish the race. Desire becomes the first participant from Group D to finish the race. He looks back at Aziz and Romantica, thinking that they have to get stronger so they can overcome the tragedy of the future. However, the professors talk about assigning classes based on the test results, magic circles, and family histories. It turns out that so far, not a single commoner had been assigned to the Alpha class. One of the professors glorifies the Academy's discriminatory policies, saying they can't afford to have uneducated commoners in the Alpha class. The others also agree with him and think commoners should be happy that they got to enroll in Hebrian Academy. However, the most senior professor silences them all and talks about Desire, who, being a commoner, managed to finish first in the entrance exam. He asks for their suggestion about him, and Professor Bridget votes in his support. Back in the academy, all the students are looking at the scoreboard, and the noble students are obviously showing off. Almost all of them are placed in the Alpha class. Desire is also there and realizes that he has been placed into the Beta class, but he is more concerned about Romantica. The next day, we see Romantica, who is in the Beta classroom and doesn't like it one bit. The professor is teaching them about Mage's circles. The skills of every mage are ranked in circles, with 1 being the lowest and 7 being the highest. In the entrance exam, the examiners placed weight on their circle, and since all the students in the classroom are on Circle 1, in order to get to the Alpha class they at least have to reach the 2nd circle. Romantica thinks she is at level 2 but somehow ended up in this classroom along with Desire, who is sitting next to her. She wonders why he is still in the Beta class after defeating the Magic Knight. Desire looks at her and passes a smile, which provokes Romantica as always, and she starts beating the desk, giving the poor professor a heart attack. Meanwhile, Desire remembers his meeting with Professor Bridget, who knows him from the orphanage and has been taking care of him ever since. She apologizes for not being able to place him in the Alpha class due to other professors and nobles strongly opposing her. He understands that they have set up a wall between nobles and commoners, and due to their hunger for power, not just him but many other capable students are stuck in Beta classes. He goes all in and decides to awake as many talented individuals as he can. After some time, a new Alpha student named Donta meets with Romantica, who is searching for party members. He is about to join Blue Moon, which is the best party in the academy made up of the top students of the Alpha classes. Since Romantica has excellent fighting skills and a perfect noble lineage, he finds it disgusting for her to be with the commoners. He then invites Romantica to join his party, but the guy does a simp move and puts forth a condition. In order to get into the Blue Moon party, Romantica has to go out on a date with him. This freaks her out, but Donta grabs her hand and insists on going with him. He tells her that he's been in love with her since he saw her at the entrance ceremony. To make a decision, Romantica asks for some time, and Donta agrees. As proof of his sincerity and true love, Donta gives her a gift called Chemuvin. In his hometown, it's a custom to give Chemuvin to the person you are in love with. When Romantica opens the gift, she finds a beautiful necklace inside. Afterward, Donta leaves from there, reminding her that he's waiting for the answer. Later, Romantica gets startled by Desire, who came there to propose to her. At first, Romantica mistakenly thought that he is going to ask her out for a date like Donta, but instead, he asks her to join his party. However, she taunts him, saying that she has already made up her mind to join the Blue Moon party, as this is where success is guaranteed. Desire knew she is going to choose the Blue Moon party over his, so he leaves a letter for her to read when no one is around. He tells her to get rid of it after reading it, and leaves from there, telling her that he is waiting for the answer. Romantica then opens the letter and starts reading it. Her hands begin to shake, and she seems angry at Desire. On the other side, Desire is thinking whether she will get mad at him or cry, but he is sure she will definitely get mad at him. As he is walking, Desire notices a guy sitting on a bench with a butterfly on his head. He knows the guy, whose name is Pram, and he was among the warriors who fought Napolitan. Pram was known to be one of the fastest swordsmen. He had all of those skills without proper training, and in this timeline, Desire decides to properly train him so he can be much more powerful. He later finds him in the training hall, and soon Romantica also arrives there, questioning him about the letter. However, Desire stops her as the practice is about to begin. Upon seeing Pram, Romantica finds him the most cute guy and wishes to keep him. The practice begins, and after thinking for a moment, Pram chooses the oversized great sword. Romantica wonders if he can really wield such an exceptionally large weapon like that. Pram gets in the ring and introduces himself, and as soon as the match begins, Pram charges up for an attack. He launches some devastating attacks, but so far, his opponent manages to block them. Romantica thinks that Pram is pretty strong, but Desire notices that he is just swinging his sword blindly, and is starting to get worn out. Seeing the opportunity, Pram's opponent begins attacking him non-stop. Pram tries one last attack, which his opponent dodges effortlessly, and then with a swing of his sword, disarms Pram, defeating him instantly. As they are wondering why Pram chose such a heavy weapon, out of nowhere, Pram's opponent begins assaulting him. Desire runs to save him, but by the time he reached there, the guy has already beaten up Pram. He then warns Desire, and he questions if Pram's blows landed harder for him or if he is jealous that Pram is more talented than him. This enraged the guy, and he attacks Desire, but he blocks his sword with his bare hand. The guy leaves from there, saying that he will remember Desire's face. Later, we see Pram putting a bandage on Desire's hand, and they introduce themselves. Pram is worried that because of him, Desire has made an enemy from the Alpha class, but Desire assures him that there is no need to worry about it. After which, he thanked Desire once again before walking away, and Romantica couldn't stop admiring Pram. Afterward, Desire and Romantica go out to talk about the letter. It turns out Romantica's father was a commoner merchant who made a fortune through trading. He then bought the title from a poor noble and obtained his surname when Romantica was 4 years old. A few professors knew about this, and that's why she was placed in the beta class. He tells her to forget about the Blue Moon party and join him, but Romantica thinks that Donta will protect him. Desire reminds her that Donta thinks commoners are filthy, and if he finds out about her past he will surely reject her. She blasts at him, saying that he can't blackmail people to join his party, but Desire had no intention of telling anyone about Romantica's past. When she finds out that Pram is also joining his party, she unwillingly agrees to join him. Even though she finds Desire to be sketchy and doesn't like his smile, she has no other options but to be his party member. She takes an oath to uncover all of Desire's secrets, and both of them shake hands to finalize the deal. We then see Pram sitting with his mom, who is holding a rapier given to her by Pram's father. She tells him that the rapier signifies his father's love for them, and as long as it's shining, his father is always looking after them. She then gives Pram the rapier, but as soon as he holds it, the sword begins to crumble faster than the crypto market. Pram begins to shout, and before he knew it, he finds himself awakening in his bed. All of this was just a nightmare as he finds his father's rapier on the table. The next day, Desire, along with Pram and Romantica, goes to Professor Bridget's office to apply to form a party. But first she gives them coffee and some biscuits, which both of them loved, especially Pram. After having a tea party, Professor Bridget gets down to business and asks Desire his reason for forming a party. Our hero simply tells her that he wants to win the upcoming ranking tournament to get himself and the rest promoted to the Alpha class. Professor Bridget explains that the ranking tournament is kind of difficult and is formed to determine the ranks of students in each grade. The eligibility to participate requires a party of 3 to 6 members, and each party has to fight and keep winning. However, parties with more members don't have an advantage, as each individual's achievements are assessed. In the end, how much the member has contributed to the party's victory is more important, and the objective of the tournament is to evaluate various skill sets of students. After winning the qualifying rounds, the winning parties will then compete in the finals rounds of the tournament, which takes place in the Shadow Worlds. The top 9 participants will be given the title of single rankers, and only then can one be promoted from the beta class to the alpha class. Romantica gets frustrated and thinks the tournament is one-sided, and Professor Bridget couldn't agree more. She warns Desire that it's impossible to get promoted since the ranking tournament is very difficult, and so far no one from beta class has managed to win it. But Desire is certain that he will win it anyways. He thinks that through this tournament, they can prove the capabilities of the beta students to the professors who think the beta class is not worth teaching, and everyone agrees with it. Later, they pass through the training facility for alpha students, and Romantica wonders why the alphas get to train in such a nice place. They soon arrive at their training room, which is no better than a horror movie set. As if that's not enough, a family of rats was already waiting to welcome them, which freaks Romantica and Pram. However, Desire is dead serious about using the room, as they have no other option. He, along with Romantica, completely transforms the room, and even Pram couldn't believe his eyes. When he pushes Romantica to train, she remembers when Professor Bridget asked her if she wants to join Desire's party, and she agreed to it only to uncover Desire's secrets. The training begins, and Desire draws a circle on the wall as he wants Romantica to demonstrate the accuracy of her magic. She begins to cast multiple wind strike spells, all of which manage to hit the target. However, Desire is still not satisfied and wants Romantica to hit the center of the target. Romantica thinks it's impossible to hit all the strikes on the center, but it's a chance Desire doesn't want to take. He is sure that Romantica will be able to do it like her future self, who had complete control over her spell's trajectory. He then gives her a ball and tells her to pass it to the other circle in front of her. At first, like any normal individual, Romantica tries to throw it by hand, but he stops her. Since she's a mage, Desire wants Romantica to manipulate the air current around the ball to move it to the other circle. Since wind spells are Romantica's specialty, so Desire wants her to visualize the wind around her. She places the ball in front of her and begins to feel all kinds of winds around her. Ripples of wind start to form around the ball as it begins to levitate and then comes down. Romantica manages to levitate the ball on her first try and gets a compliment from Desire, but still, she has a long way to go. Desire then calls Pram, who is super excited to train and learn the art of swordsmanship. However, Desire thinks he has nothing to teach him, as Pram has already perfected the craft as a sword master and is strong enough to win the tournament. Pram obviously doesn't agree with him and wants to train like Romantica. Desire remembers how, in the future, Pram easily tore through enemies with his rapier with little to no effort. He then asks Pram why he chose the long sword while fighting an alpha student the other day. He thinks Pram should use a lighter weapon, something like a rapier, which shocks Pram, since his weakness will affect the party's overall performance. Pram asks Desire to come along with him as he has something to show him. While walking through the hallway, Pram asks Desire about Romantica's training, who is having super fun with it, and he wonders if Desire trusts her. To his surprise, Desire replies that he trusts both of them alike. They arrive at Pram's room, and he shows Desire his father's rapier, which is the exact sword he saw him using in the future. Desire learns that Pram's father was a noble who fell in love with his mom, a commoner. Pram never saw his father and began training since childhood, only to one day meet his father and make him proud. However, on her deathbed, Pram's mother tells him never to try to visit his father, as their worlds are very different. Since nobles from different countries come to the academy, Pram enrolled in it in the hope of getting some info about his father. He even took the rapier to town and learned that it has no value and does not meet noble standards. From that day, Pram decided never to use that sword again. 3 days have passed since then, and the training is going as Desire had planned. Romantica has now mastered the control of her attacks, but still needs some practice, as the ball is not yet landing on the circle. On the other side, Pram continues to train with the long sword. During their training session, Desire suddenly remembers Donta giving Romantica a gift called Kemuvan. He asks Pram if he can see his sword again, as he has something to confirm, but Pram refuses to show it. After insisting multiple times, Pram tells Desire that he can't show him the sword as he has already sold it. We then see Pram's sword, which is now in the possession of some evil-looking guy with glasses, and this is where this episode ends. Thanks for watching this anime recap. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more anime recaps like this. I will see you in the next video.